Hello, my name is Luis David Fernandez Zambrano. And I'm part of the chair of the For Culture on Peace and Human Rights of the Faculty of the Social Science and University of the Buenos Aires. We will be hosting the conference Now We will journey in justice, exploration in mediation and dispute resolution in the 21st century. At this event, we will have the opportunity to hear valuable contribution from the speaker, Wells works in the subjects. The conference will be broadcast on various digital platforms, where the audience can listen and ask questions that will later be presented to the speaker. First, to date, we will have participation of Dr. David Hoffman. David Hoffman is the John of the Watson, junior lecturer of law at Harvard Law School, where is teaches three courses: the mediation, the legal profession, the collaborative law, and diversity and dispute resolutions. He's trained mediator with the program on negotiation of Harvard Law School. The Hoffman is an attorney, mediator, arbitrator, and founding member of Boston Law Collaborates LLC, where he's handled cases involving the family, the business, the employment, and other disputes. He is the past and chair of the American Bar Association, the section on dispute resolutions. It is very important for the country to work of colleague with David Hoffman because he is a very relevant person, academic, for the construction of the new generation and best future for this planet. We will also have the participation, Luis David Fernandez Zambrano, the current professor and director of the chair of the Culture of Peace and Human Rights at the Faculty of the Social Science of the University of the Buenos Aires. He is the author books and articles related to legal theory, constitutional law, the labor and human rights, educational law, and culture. His currently works alongside Adolfo Pérez Esquivel, the Nobel Prize, 1918 year, in the search for the peaceful and democratic solution to the various political and educational challenges of the modern world. I would like to point out that Professor David Hoffman will have the 25 to 30 minutes to present his insightful contribution of the subjects. Dr. and Professor David Hoffman will have the floor. Thank you very much for your presentation. Excuse me for this problem technological today in the afternoon. Thank you very much, Professor David Hoffman. Very wishes for just perspective today in the afternoon for the new generation academic in this continent, in this planet, in this new century.
Thank you for the very kind words and lovely introduction. I'm broadcasting from the Washington, D.C. area where I'm attending a conference on alternative dispute resolution. And so I'm taking a break from my conference to be at your conference. Let me start with my outline of topics that I want to discuss. And there are 5 topics. So the first one is about education and training for lawyers and other professionals, and indeed the public, in mediation and other forms of alternative dispute resolution. That's the first topic. Second topic and actually second, third, fourth, and fifth, have to do with the development of our field, the dispute resolution field. I want to talk about developing more expertise in psychology, in understanding our unconscious biases. I want to talk about dispute resolution as a career path, and I want to talk about regulation and licensing of mediators, arbitrators, and other dispute resolvers. So that's a very ambitious agenda for a very limited period of time. And after I give my talk, if there are questions that people want to put in the chat, I do have to leave at the top of the hour because I have to go back to my conference. So first, about education. In the United States, it is not a mandatory subject for the education of lawyers to learn about mediation and arbitration and dispute resolution. And I think that's a mistake. I think that will change. It's now becoming standard in law schools to learn about negotiation. Mediation is simply assisted negotiation, and lawyers should be trained. Everyone should be trained in how to use mediation and indeed how to be a mediator. Same thing with arbitration. So I believe the day will come when that will become a required part of legal education. But why stop there? Why shouldn't business people be trained in conflict resolution procedures and skills? For that matter, if two people are getting a marriage license and they're going to get married, and maybe they're going to bring children into the world, wouldn't it be a good thing if they were required to take a course in conflict resolution? It might result in fewer divorces and less hardship for the children of divorce. In Massachusetts and in some other states, we have mandatory education for married couples about conflict resolution if they file for a divorce. And they have to learn about how to be effective co-parents. But why do it at the back end? Why not do it at the front end as a preventive measure, as opposed to solving problems that now are going to be costly for society and perhaps for children? And for that matter, why don't we make education about mediation and conflict resolution a required part of grade school? Why shouldn't every child be taught how to resolve conflicts so that we don't have bullying as much, we don't have children fighting with each other and mistreating each other on social media? We can empower kids to become peer mediators. That is to say, the kids serve as the mediators for their peers who are in conflict. Here in the United States, there are some states where peer mediation is taught in the school systems, but it's far from being universal. And I think that would be a big and very positive change. And we can imagine the effects, the effects that might reverberate from that kind of universal training in negotiation and mediation. For example, in our legislatures, where lawmakers are often deadlocked and can't get anything done, what if they had training? Or what if people who are in business together in a partnership could resolve their conflicts successfully? So that's point number one: universal training throughout our society in these techniques. They shouldn't be the monopoly of lawyers. They shouldn't be the monopoly of people who have specialized training. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't have a profession of conflict resolution. I think we should, but I think that there are lots of ways in which those skills can be shared. For example, in education, we have licensed teachers, and it's a good thing that they are licensed, they're certified, they're trained. It's a profession. But that doesn't mean that other people can't be educators, that can't teach programs for our communities and in other ways. So conflict resolution could be like that. It could be a licensed, regulated profession, and also something that people do generally. So that was point number one. Point number two, as a matter of professional development, lawyers and mediators, arbitrators are not required to study psychology. Now, how can that be? We are in a people business. How can it be that we are not trained to understand what makes people tick? How do our minds work? There's a vast science that will help conflict resolvers be more effective if we studied the way in which emotions and cognitive biases affect not only the party's decision-making, but affect our own decision-making, because we are subject to some of the same psychological forces that the clients are subject to. Now, of course, there are many different schools of psychology, but I'm going to put in a plug for one of them that I have found particularly useful, and it's called the Internal Family Systems Model. And you might think that it's about families, but it's not. It's about the family-like relationships that our various psychological parts have. So, for example, there's a part of me that likes to work hard. I get a lot of satisfaction from that. But there's also a part of me that likes to ride my bike or go on a paddleboard or go for a walk on the beach with my dog or go see a movie with my wife. I like to have fun. I like to have enjoyment. So I have those two different parts. Now they have to reach an agreement as to how much time am I going to spend working, how much time am I going to spend having fun. Neither of those is a bad part, but I need to have some kind of peaceful interaction between those parts. There's a part of me that is optimistic. There's also a part of me that's pessimistic. It's a good thing I have both of those parts. There's a part of me that likes to be generous. There's a part of me that likes to be very careful about how I spend money. So it's a good thing to have both of those parts. We are all very complicated. The internal family systems model helps us understand all the complexity of our minds and to appreciate our parts and help manage them well. When we are in a conflict resolution situation, often people come to us with very activated emotional parts. They're very upset. And what we can do is we can help them understand that that is a part of them, and the part of them that is angry is very understandable. And they also have a part that's trying to be practical about resolving the conflict. And that's a valuable part also. And if people feel kind of ambivalent, feel stuck, well, I want to settle this, but I don't want to be taken advantage of, we can explain that those are valid feelings, valid parts. And each of us has an internal mediator that can help listen to those parts and come up with a wise decision about how we're going to proceed. And we mediators have those same capacities. We have self-energy, we have that internal mediator. So when we're getting upset because one of the parties is being difficult, there can be another part that feels compassion, that feels some understanding of the part in that client who's all riled up, emotional, upset, and making things difficult from the standpoint of bringing peace into the room. So whether people study the internal family systems model, which was created by Dr. Richard Schwartz, or they study some other psychological models, the larger point is that we have a professional responsibility as conflict resolvers to learn more about psychology. And I would submit that even for lawyers who have no intention of being mediators, that lawyers have a professional responsibility for understanding more about psychology. That was point number two. Point number three is about bias. We live in a world in which all of us have biases. And that means either stereotypes about certain kinds of people or attitudes about certain kinds of people simply based on their gender or their race or their nationality or their ethnicity or their religion, their age, their sexual orientation, their disability status. There are all kinds of ways in which we make judgments, and sometimes we're aware of those mental judgments, and sometimes we're not aware of them. They operate subconsciously, but they are a function of experiences that we've had in life, or maybe things that we've been told by our parents or other family members or friends, things maybe we picked up in school. And often these biases are very harmful because they make us less able to treat everybody equally and fairly. And so the question is, what do we do about those biases? So one of the things we can do is become more aware of them, study them. There's a whole scientific literature about these kinds of biases. And I think that that's an important thing to do. We can also go out of our way to read the literature and watch the movies and other cultural productions of people who are different from us, so we can learn more about what life is like for people who live in other parts of the world, people who are maybe live in our communities but are different from us in one way or another. I'll give you an example. There was a TV show, and I don't know if it came to Argentina, but it was about a lawyer who has autism. And the title of the show was Extraordinary Attorney Woo, W-O-O. And in this fictional depiction of a lawyer who was autistic, we got to see how the world looks from the standpoint of someone who is very relatable for us lawyers, because she too is a lawyer, but someone who is very different from us because of how much anxiety she felt in all kinds of situations, social situations and other situations. And watching that show, my wife and I found ourselves having a lot more understanding of autism and a lot more empathy for people who have autism. It also has the effect of sort of normalizing it. Okay, so there's this law firm, and it has lawyers who are a lawyer who's autistic, and it has lawyers who are not autistic. We can work with lawyers of all kinds. So that's one way in which exposing ourselves to literature or other culture about people different from us can expand our minds and make us less reactive when we encounter people who are different from us. I think that should be part of our ethical duties and our professional responsibility as conflict resolvers and also as lawyers, to become more aware of our biases and to try to reduce those biases by a variety of different means that are scientifically proven and available. Third point, I'm sorry, that was my third point. My fourth point is about career paths. So one of the interesting things about the conflict resolution field is that it doesn't have a defined career path. Let's say you want to be a police officer. There's a very defined career path. You go to the academy and you study policing. You take an examination. Maybe you even have to take an examination to go to the police academy. Once you finish, you have to take an examination to make sure that you've learned the things that you need to learn. And then you become a trainee and you have a period of apprenticeship. And then you become a police officer. We don't have a career path for being a mediator. We have one for being a lawyer, but as we all know, being trained as a lawyer doesn't immediately qualify us to be a mediator or an arbitrator. It requires specialized training. So we have training programs in the United States, and I hope in Argentina as well. There are programs for training mediators and arbitrators. But what do they do after they get their training? And if we had a program of employment for mediators, for example, in our courts, these newly minted mediators, newly trained mediators could apply for an entry-level job and maybe get an apprenticeship and then maybe join the staff. But one of the reasons why we don't have a career path for mediators and arbitrators is in the United States, we do not have sufficient public funding to hire mediators. There are some jurisdictions where there's a little bit of public money for this, but for the most part, the funding is insufficient. And so we don't have jobs that newly trained mediators can step into. And I think this impedes the growth of the field. So a step that would be helpful is if we had public funding of mediators and arbitrators to the same degree that we have public funding of judges and courts. Because after all, mediators and arbitrators are trying to do the same thing the courts are doing, but through different means, namely address conflict, resolve conflict. And this is helpful to society and reducing the court dockets so that people, when they file a case in court, can be heard quickly rather than having to wait many years is a good thing for society, because now the parties who have a court case can get on with their lives. The fifth and final point is related to public funding of mediation and arbitration, and it has to do with the regulation of the field. Right now in the United States, if you decide that you want to advertise yourself as a mediator or as an arbitrator, there is no state in the United States where you cannot do that. And you could do that even if you have no training, even if you have no experience. We do not have a consumer protection mechanism for alerting the public to the fact that someone who says they're a mediator doesn't necessarily mean that they've taken any specific kind of training, they've passed any kind of test, that they are subject to any kind of oversight, supervision, or requirement of adherence to ethical rules. There's no way of knowing whether they are participating in continuing legal education or mentorship or peer supervision or any of the things that established professions have as part of their structure. And I worry about people hiring mediators who are not well qualified, who are not well trained. And I worry that it causes people to be less likely to use mediators because we don't have a way of certifying to the public the standards of quality, or people meeting at least the minimum standards of competence. Now, in addition to having that kind of licensure, that kind of regulation, which I think would be a good thing for the field, I think we should also have what doctors have, which is board certification, which means not only do you have to be pass medical exams to show that you are qualified to be a doctor, but if you want to be a specialist, you have to take advanced training, and then you get a credential that says you are board certified in a particular specialty. I think we should have that kind of specialty training in mediation. So we would have essentially two levels. We would have entry-level credentialing so that the public knows that anyone who holds themselves out as a mediator has basic training and has passed some kind of observation. So people, the regulators can say, we've watched this person mediate and we believe that they know what they're doing. But there's an issue here, actually a couple of issues that I want to raise. One of them is the cost. It's very costly to do high quality credentialing and to actually have mediators being observed. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It just means we have to devote the resources to it. But a second problem is, how do we avoid there being subjectivity? In other words, how do we know that people are being measured by an objective standard? And going back to the question of bias, how do we know that people's biases are not affecting their judgment when they are certifying whether a mediator is doing a good job or not? I think we have to be very careful that the credentialing of mediators, the licensure of mediators, doesn't provide an advantage or a privilege for people who are simply well educated but may not be very skillful as mediators, because there are plenty of people whose educations are maybe very basic. Maybe they've been to the university or maybe they haven't, but they are excellent mediators. And I would like to make sure that our field is inclusive. And the more inclusive the ranks of mediators and arbitrators can be, the more likely it is that people will use mediation because they will have people in their communities of all kinds, who are doing mediation, who are trained in mediation, who are certified as mediators. So in conclusion, what I would say is that I would like to see a field of conflict resolution which is highly professional, well supported with continuing education and mentorship, and also a dissemination of these skills to a larger public. I would like to see our field become more educated about psychology and bias. And I'd like to see our field more encouraging and supportive of bringing people along and climbing the career ladder to join our ranks. This is wonderful work. It's much needed. Our society has an abundance of conflict. I don't think we have to worry that we're going to have too many mediators. There's so much conflict out there in the world. I think we need more peacemakers. So, Luis, that is my story, and I'm sticking to it. And now I'd like to hand the baton to you to see if you have questions for me, or if any of the people participating have questions. And you are muted, so I can't hear you.
Thank you, Dr.
Very
Davis
much.
Hoffman.
Thank you very much, Professor David Hoffman, for your brilliant brilliant participation to take in the conference about the terms very important for the of humanity. This question, one moment please, solamente quiero intervenir unas palabras, pero igual voy a dejar para el público que está escuchando las preguntas con el objetivo, pero igual lo voy a colocar por interno. One moment please. That's right, okay. Okay. That's right, ¿dónde está el chat? Acá está el chat. Fantástico. Ahí está. Muy bien. Excelente. Ahí están las preguntas, pero bueno, voy a prácticamente hacer uso de la palabra para cumplir con las formalidades institucionales. Well, hello, good afternoon. Truly, it's a tremendous honor for me to share the table with such a distinguished colleague from Harvard University. And I will strive to rise to the occasions of the emotional and intellectual challenging circumstances. Throughout the ancient times, the centuries had the witness complex battles and the fierce wars, driven by the ambitions of those who govern kingdoms, the principalities or guiding positions, in order to expand or maintain the territorial power. The deeply critique of the potentially destructive nature of the human species has coexisted both with a destructive equality that has marked the past millenniums. The philosophical insights of Thomas Hobbes and Niccolò Machiavelli illustrate the real destructive potential inherent in the humanity, leading to bitter rallies and disloyalties to the rules of law and democratic principle that we hold at the Harvard University and the University of the Buenos Aires, as we share the new paths in the civilization process of the humanity. This moral basis, the portrait in the classic works, the like Shakespeare, Macbeth, demonstrates that this phenomena characteristic of military or historical settings, as well as the gradual configuration on the European geographic and other continents, have also transcendent, transcendent into vast cultural literature, revealing from the platform of human soul the architecture of the mythical presence of Thanatos in philosophy and belligerent pragmatism of those near or distant from political power. The further along within the intricate philosophical journeys, memorable figures like Arthur Schopenhauer or Émile Cioran emerge, reflecting and deep pessimism toward where human live across time and space. If we wish to add a legal anchor to such characterization, the reason behind the verb of criminal, constitutional, or civic law in the annals of our continent, the history lies in the strong sense of arm among those who, with a certain monopoly of power and violence, seek to prevent humans from harming each other for various reasons, prioritizing a kind of armed peace through the impositions of a set of rules and procedures that clearly establish sanctions for those who decide to violate the civil rights of their fellow beings without justifications. Um, Such issues, lawmakers and justice operators often acknowledge that the component of social fabric possesses a destructive quality that can threaten governmental stability, the normal coexisting among peers, or even promote the collapse of power structure at any moment. We all suck just being mentioned above the many mind understandability, since the panorama of human life on Earth is solely shaped by the entrenchment of wickedness, envy, or mere fortunes. However, like every dialectical and ontological quality of humanity, this latter pessimistic explanations about humanity's secular role in shaping its destiny deeply rivals the quality of laws, the kindness, empathy, the solidarity, and reason. Our woe is known from Greek methodology and eros, sees two anthropocentric qualities, mirror as days and nights, the winter and spring within human nature, show sad pessimism has persisted since ancient times without the weak life, since blend on virtues and flaws triggers and profound series of mathematical possibilities in favor of those who wager on the hope that a much better world impossible. Therefore, this region of humanity stations, where the tarantula of evil has not yet injected its venom, proved to be the conducive space to seek to illuminate the charms and consciousness of human beings in this present millennium. Um, there is a famous saying in our era that goes, there is no person deeply the exempt from a degree of weakness, nor deeply evil person who does not have a spark of goodness still surviving within. Under this premise, I believe that the duty of intellectuals who aspire to peace in our century, whether in professional, academic, familiar, or personal spheres, fundamentally lies is constantly working to expand the region of light or luminosity in the jar of our fellow beings to journey is toward building a much better tomorrow. Historical and scientific experience correctly teaches a success noble intellectual endeavor, which requires courage and intelligence to counteract and the shadows of evil thoughts that may distort our purpose in by no means a simple task. The human nature is entirely multifaceted and transitional, depending on the endogenous and exogenous circumstances that traverse the various chapters of the existences. Um, in this sense, years, months, or day, we are prone both to bitterness and the profound happiness, to kindness as well as to being demotivated by certain vengeful qualities. Thus, one may conclude that the average human or of our era, much like in all the President Juan's carries an internal battle, where light and darkness vie for the control of our personality. The actual of this strictly will determine the quality of light we experience, both internally and externally. And so dominated by the resentment envy of other morally correcting vices are obviously incapable of the engaging in the serious effort at reconciliation in legal, political, and order inherently real-life context. This multifaceted approach leads are to consider different methods to promote the conflict resolution in war-torn regions such as the Middle East, where current United States President Joe Biden, like Adolfo Pérez Esquivel, has exemplarily and deeply inspiringly decided to seek a silly effort to prevent further innocent bloodshed and promote peace, thus honoring their steadfast commitment to democracy and human rights amid the complex challenges of our contemporary civilization. Therefore, we must refrain sin conflicted individuals solely at government by resentment of miles, but rather an individuals debattling their of the demons, insecurities, pains, and hard memories, which hinder their ability to find effective answers to the world's modern day problems. I fundamentally believe that the world of the peacemaker in the now new millennium must not um, overlook the importance of exploring these areas of humanity in conflict, marked by pain and anguish, to soar greater lives of hope, joy, and peace. Such these virtues may manifest externally in their social, political, and legal behavior. Truly, and fundamental piece of, of this puzzle in recognizing that to progressively resolve the conflicting issues and interests, we must acknowledge that we are not all the same, yet still seek and find reason or notion of which we can agree. From their intersection of some common interests beyond any difference on discrepancy, we can gradually increase the life of the healthy coexistence, harmony, and kindness. Ultimately eliminating any darkness that matter in human hearts. Um, Truly, exact tasks demands much kindness, good faith, empathy, and nobility, but above all, empathy from of the peacemaker. The furthermore is the crucial of recognize that not only legal practitioners the within university, of course, are necessary to carry out these the wonderful missions of the safeguarding hope and the healthy coexisting in the world. We need the positive collaborations of the diverse agents from civil society, private sector, and academia, transcending any difference to refine strategies such graduality enhance the quality of life for our fellow human beings, intellectual workers, artists, scientists, uh, and all members of civil society must be called upon to contribute their part to see noble purposes that will illuminate the path of humanity. Undoubtedly, the demonstration of culture and education for all system by university represent and seeing fun step forward in raising awareness and raising skills by above all the forging positive sentiments and creating conducive condition to expand the boundaries of kindness, empathy, and joy in the hearts of our fellow beings. Um, well, from the University of the Buenos Aires, we are committed to continuing our search for creating cultural channels for the research and dissemination of a culture of peace through an interdisciplinary approach. We frequently have sought our distinguished scholar David Hoffman, along with other colleagues from Harvard University, can collaborate with us invoke the virtual and in-person conference to further this wonderful collectivity endeavor. Harvard University, David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies has been a Greek ally for many years, and I believe it can now, under different skies, serve as the main go-to for renewed intellectual partnership between the University of Buenos Aires and Harvard University. Together, we can concept and pursue joint projects that not only have the significant impact in academia, but also transcend the classic university borders of any one country, seeking to inspire hopes in other parts of the planet, regardless of linguistic or geographic proximity. Therefore, I would like to conclude by expressing my gratitude to Dr. and friends David Hoffman for sharing moment with us in our activities, and above all, congratulating him on his wonderful work at Harvard Law School, where he lays the foundational pieces to build a much better future. Thank you very much, Professor.